picture this. You have the physical coordinated theft of a 1970s American space shuttle.
Right.
Then you have a massive multi-billion-dollar corporate boardroom battle over a viral social media app in 2026.
Yeah, seemingly totally unrelated things.
Exactly. And then on top of that, the municipal water supply running under your street right at this very moment.
Which is a pretty wild combination.
Oh, right. On the surface, these have absolutely nothing to do with each other, but there is actually a single invisible thread connecting all of them.
And that thread is what we're getting into today.
Yep. Today, we are going on a deep dive into a fascinating document that, honestly, completely rewired how I view global competition. It tracks the structural evolution of technology acquisition.
It really is an incredible piece of research.
It is. Our mission here is to figure out the mechanics of what looks like an impossible magic trick, how do nations manage to bypass decades of grueling, incredibly expensive research and development?
Just to skip the line.
Right, to just skip the line and establish systemic technological parity with their rivals.
Well, to understand that magic trick, we really have to trace what the sources call the architecture of transfer.
Okay, the architecture of transfer.
Yeah, because the underlying goal of adversarial nations, it hasn't changed one bit in the last 50 years.
The goal is always parity, right?
Right, exactly. Catching up or overtaking your rival without actually doing the foundational homework. But the methods to achieve that goal have fundamentally radically shifted.
So it's an evolution.
A masterclass in evolution. We are moving from, spies stealing physical paper documents in the dark to lawyers codifying broad legal frameworks in broad daylight.
Wow.
And all the way to invisible cyber persistence hiding silently inside modern civic networks.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to really understand the invisible cyber threats we're dealing with today, we have to look at the baseline.
We have to go back in time a bit.
Yeah, mentally, we need to step back into a room full of 1980s aerospace blueprints. The document calls this the mechanical era.
Right, the age of physical technology transfer. I mean, if you wanted hardware specifications back then, you couldn't just write a script and click a download button.
Obviously not. No internet.
Right. It required a highly coordinated, manually intensive, and honestly incredibly risky espionage apparatus.
So who were the main players here?
Well, in 1975, the Soviet Union's Military-Industrial Commission, they were known as the VPK, teamed up with the KGB's Technical Directorate.
Oh, wow. The KGB.
Yeah, and they launched this massive, highly targeted intelligence campaign aimed squarely at the American space transportation system.
Which you and I know better as the Space Shuttle program.
Exactly.
But why the shuttle specifically? Were they just, trying to keep up appearances in the space race, or was there a distinct tactical reason?
It was heavily tactical.
Right.
Soviet leadership looked at the U.S. shuttle and assessed it as a potential platform for orbital military operations.
Wait, really? Like a weapon?
Well, imagine an adversary having a reusable vehicle that could ostensibly capture a Soviet satellite, put it in a cargo bay, and just bring it back to Earth.
Oh, that is terrifying from their perspective.
It was an existential threat. They didn't just want to know how the shuttle worked. They felt they needed to have their own to maintain parity.
So what did they do?
They created a highly centralized shopping list. We know this from a declassified 1985 report called Soviet Acquisition of Western Technology.
Okay.
And the intelligence units were given hyper-specific targets. They went after open academic literature. They infiltrated international aerospace conferences.
Just going to conferences and grabbing papers.
Yeah, and pulling publicly available NASA documents and straight up breaching the databases of commercial defense contractors.
I'm looking at the list of what they actually managed to walk away with, and it is staggering. I mean, They didn't just get fuzzy photographs of the exterior.
No, the granularity is what makes this a textbook case of the mechanical era.
How deep did these technical acquisitions go?
Extremely deep. They successfully obtained wind tunnel test reports detailing delta wing aerodynamics.
Okay, to clarify for you listening, a delta wing is that distinct triangular shape of the shuttle.
Right. And understanding its aerodynamics at hypersonic speeds is crucial.
Because you have to know exactly how that shape is going to cut through the atmosphere without, tearing itself apart.
Exactly.
Right.
They also managed to acquire the precise chemical compositions and the application specifications for the shuttle's high-temperature thermal protection tiles.
Those are the complex ceramic materials that literally keep the vehicle from incinerating upon re-entry?
Yeah, the tiles are vital. And they even got the avionics, schematics, and the structural blueprints for the airframe itself.
Which culminated in a very real, very physical machine.
The Soviet Buran orbital.
Yeah. And it actually flew. Like on November 15th, 1988, the Buran executed its sole flight.
It was an uncrewed 2-orbit mission.
Right, and it ended with a completely autonomous landing in Kazakhstan. But looking at the schematics and the sources, I have a major question.
Go for it.
Because it's like stealing a rival tech company's smartphone casing, right?
Okay.
But then having to invent your own battery and code an entire operating system from scratch just to make the screen turn on.
That is a really great analogy.
If they successfully stole the blueprints, why were the internal systems of the Buran fundamentally completely different from the American shuttle?
Because you've hit on the absolute limits of physical technology transfer.
Okay, what do you mean?
Stealing the external aerodynamic profile of a vehicle, literally the blueprint of its shape,
Yeah.
does not magically replicate the internal manufacturing infrastructure of an entire nation.
Ah. So they had the shape, but not the factories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Buran looked almost identical to the American shuttle on the outside, but it completely lacks the main liquid-fueled engines of the U.S. shuttle.
Wait, it didn't have the main engines?
No. The Soviets didn't have the supply chain, the metallurgy, or the manufacturing base to build those reusable internal engines. So the Buran had to rely entirely on an external launch vehicle to push it into space, what we call orbital insertion.
That makes sense.
And furthermore, because you can't just photocopy digital code from a piece of paper, the Buran featured a completely distinct automated flight control software infrastructure.
Because they had to write it themselves.
Right. They could steal the shape, but they couldn't steal the underlying industrial base that made the shape function.
So it was this incredibly slow, manual process to steal information that they couldn't even fully utilize.
Yeah.
And the whole thing ended in a pretty anticlimactic way, honestly. The economic engine of the Soviet Union started failing, and the USSR dissolved.
And the funding for that whole program was cut off by 1993.
Yeah. And the only flight-proven orbiter was destroyed in 2002. Not in some dramatic space explosion, but because a poorly maintained hangar roof literally collapsed on top of it in Kazakhstan.
A tragic, totally mundane end to a monumental intelligence effort. But the failure of the Buran taught rival nations a really harsh lesson. Stealing physical hardware is too slow, it's too fragmented, and ultimately it's too fragile.
So what's the alternative?
Well, if stealing a blueprint doesn't give you the manufacturing base, how do you force a technology transfer without breaking into a laboratory in the dead of night?
You change the rules of the game.
You change the law. You create a structural environment where the companies have to hand the system directly to you.
Which perfectly moves us out of the 1980s and into the modern era.
Yes, exactly.
We are officially trading trench coats for tailored suits. We are moving from the physical to the legal.
This is the codified framework era. The mechanism of transfer evolved away from covert spies and moved toward overt structural legal mandates.
And the document looks at this neutrally, right? Just examining the statutory text itself to see how the architecture works.
Right, we're just looking at the legal reality. A primary example is the People's Republic of China's National Intelligence Law, which was enacted in 2017 and revised in 2018.
Okay, what does the law actually say?
Well, Article 7 explicitly mandates that all organizations and citizens shall support, assist, and cooperate with national intelligence efforts.
All organizations, okay.
And then Article 14 goes a step further. It states that intelligence institutions, when legally carrying out their work, may request that relevant organizations provide necessary support and assistance.
I want to break down what that actually means for a company doing business over there.
Yeah, it's significant.
Because if you combine those articles with their 2021 data security law and the 2023 counter-espionage law, you essentially create what the document calls a zero refusal mechanism.
Yes, a zero refusal mechanism.
What does that look like in practice for a massive tech enterprise?
In practice, it creates a structural reality where any enterprise operating within that jurisdiction or just holding relevant data is legally compelled to grant access.
Access to what, specifically?
To their data repositories or even their foundational source code upon official request. There is literally zero legal mechanism for a private corporation to say no, to appeal it, or to block the transfer.
They just have to hand it over.
The law effectively turns every corporate entity into a potential node for state technology acquisition.
And that legal architecture literally reshaped the global consumer technology space.
It really did.
Because of these statutory frameworks, we saw the massive fallout from the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act.
Yes, that was the catalyst.
This was the legal reality that forced the total operational reorganization of TikTok inside the United States in early 2026.
That is the perfect case study for this era.
So what exactly happened in 2026?
Well, the creation of the TikTok USDS Joint Venture LLC in January 2026 was a direct structural response to that zero refusal mechanism.
Because the U.S. government recognized that as long as the parent company, ByteDance, was subject to Chinese jurisdiction,
the data of U.S. citizens was legally vulnerable. So they forced a reorganization where corporate equity was meticulously split to sever the app from that jurisdiction entirely.
Okay, so ByteDance was restricted to a minority stake, right? Like
Right.
19.9%.
Exactly, 19.9%. And then a consortium of U.S. and international tech funds took majority control.
So they forced this massive reorganization, bringing in American and international players. We're talking Oracle, Silver Lake, and MGX, each taking a 15% stake.
Correct.
But how did the U.S. actually ensure the data stayed secure? It's not like they just put a padlock on a server rack and called it a day.
No, Oracle's role in this consortium was highly specific and deeply technical.
What was their mandate?
They were mandated to build what is essentially a corporate clean room. It's not just about keeping the data in America, it's about severing the operational ties.
Right.
Oracle had to assume total physical control over the servers hosting U.S. user data. But more importantly, they had to isolate and completely retrain the underlying content recommendation algorithms entirely within domestic infrastructure.
Wait, hold on. Why did they have to retrain the algorithm? If you already locked up the user data, who cares what the algorithm is doing?
Because the algorithm is the engine.
Okay.
The recommendation algorithm learns from user behavior, what videos you watch, how long you linger, what you share.
Right, that makes sense.
If that algorithm is still communicating with engineers in Beijing to be updated and tweaked, you haven't actually severed the tie. The data is still flowing.
Ah, I see.
So Oracle had to ensure that the learning loop of the algorithm happened exclusively on American soil, completely detached from the parent company's engineering base.
So what does this all mean? I have to be skeptical here, honestly.
Okay, let's hear it.
If the overarching goal of technology transfer, going all the way back to the Soviets wanting that space shuttle in the 70s, is to establish systemic parity,
Yes.
does creating a fancy corporate legal firewall like this 2026 TikTok deal actually stop a rival nation from getting what they want?
That's the big question.
Or is it just incredibly expensive legal chess that focuses entirely on boardroom data while missing the actual threat?
Your skepticism is entirely validated by the research.
Really?
Yes, that is the pivotal realization of this document. Legal firewalls like the USDS joint venture do successfully block traditional corporate data transfer.
So they work for what they are.
Right. They keep the boardroom data secure, and they protect user privacy profiles. But they do absolutely nothing to stop the acquisition of foundational technologies that are freely given away on the open internet.
Right, open source stuff.
Exactly. Nor do they stop cyber actors who simply bypass the corporate boardroom entirely and instead just hide in the digital basement of a nation's physical infrastructure.
Wow. And just like that, the playbook shifts again.
A huge pivot.
We've moved from the slow physical theft of blueprints, past the legal compulsion of the boardroom, and directly into the modern digital Wild West.
The Wild West is a good way to put it.
Let's start with the stuff that is freely given away, because this completely flips the concept of espionage on its head.
What's fascinating here is the domain of artificial intelligence. It has completely shifted this dynamic through open weights releases.
Open weights, okay.
Yeah. When a massive tech company creates a foundational AI model, take Meta's Llama architecture, for example, and releases it under an open weights license, the actual model parameters and the pre-trained weights are publicly downloadable to anyone with an internet connection.
Anyone.
Anyone.
I want to make sure we understand the magnitude of what that means. If I'm an adversarial state-backed research group in, say, Shenzhen or Beijing, how much time and money am I saving by just hitting download on an open weights model?
You are saving months of time and hundreds of millions of dollars.
Just by clicking download.
Literally. Because training a foundational AI model from scratch requires a primary compute phase.
And what does that entail?
This means running tens of thousands of highly specialized, incredibly expensive graphical processing units, GPUs, for months on end.
Which uses massive amounts of electricity, right?
Exactly. Huge energy costs just to teach the AI the basic structure of language and logic.
Okay.
By downloading an open weights model, Foreign research groups completely skip that phase. Western cybersecurity audits verify they are routinely downloading these open architectures.
And then what do they do with them?
They take them and simply fine-tune them on their own local proprietary datasets. They leapfrog the grueling development timeline legally, instantly, and basically for free.
It is mind-blowing efficiency.
It's the ultimate shortcut.
But while the researchers are legally downloading AI, the cyber operations side has pivoted in a much darker direction.
Much darker.
State-sponsored cyber actors, specifically groups identified by CISA, the FBI, the NSA, and the International Five Eyes Network as Volt Typhoon and Salt Typhoon, have entirely shifted their focus.
Right. They aren't trying to steal intellectual property anymore.
So what are they doing?
They have moved entirely to the covert pre-positioning of access within critical physical infrastructure.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because Volt Typhoon uses a technique called living off the land.
Yes.
Think of it this way. It's like a burglar who breaks into your house. But instead of bringing a crowbar, a ski mask, and a flashlight that might give them away,
Right.
they just put on your bathrobe, they cook dinner using your pots and pans, they sit on your couch, and they blend in so perfectly with the environment that when you walk through the living room, you don't even realize a hostile actor is there.
To push that analogy further, if the police come looking for a burglar, they are scanning for a guy with a crowbar.
Exactly.
They aren't looking for a guy in a bathrobe flipping pancakes.
Right.
That is exactly why traditional antivirus software completely ignores Volt Typhoon. The verified forensic logs show that these actors do not write custom malware.
Because custom malware is the crowbar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Custom malware leaves a recognizable signature that security software catches. Instead, they utilize native administrative tools that are already built into the target systems.
What does that mean mechanically? Like, what are native administrative tools?
It means they are using things like PowerShell or standard system administration protocols.
Okay, so normal IT stuff.
Exactly. These are the exact same, perfectly normal, legitimate commands that an IT guy uses to manage a network remotely, check system health, or update a server.
Wow. So they're just using the system against itself.
Because the hostile actors are using the system's own legitimate tools, it just looks like routine IT diagnostics. They remain completely undetected within industrial control systems.
And industrial control systems, those are the digital networks that operate physical machinery, right?
Correct.
And the targets they are sitting inside of are honestly terrifying. We are talking about municipal water treatment facilities.
Yes.
We are talking about electrical transmission grids, major maritime transport hubs and ports across the United States and its Pacific territories.
The massive scope.
But if they aren't stealing data, what exactly are they waiting for?
Federal assessment data clarifies a pretty chilling reality about their intent. The operational signature here is not consistent with traditional espionage.
Okay.
As we said, they aren't there to exfiltrate data. They aren't copying files and sending them back home.
So what's the posture?
The technical posture is defined entirely as pre-positioning. They are embedding themselves for the long term to execute disruptive kinetic or cyber actions in the event of a major geopolitical crisis.
Wait, kinetic meaning physical destruction? Like literally causing a piece of machinery to break down or blow up?
Precisely. Sending a command that causes a water pump to overpressurize and burst, or an electrical transformer to overheat and fail.
Oh, man.
That is a kinetic action achieved through a cyber intrusion.
Which really makes me question the entire evolution of this strategy.
How so?
Well, if the goal since the 1970s was always acquiring tech to build things, like stealing the shuttle spec so they could manufacture the Buran orbiter, why shift entirely to just hiding in water treatment plants to break things?
It's a fair question.
Is the new version of parity just mutually assured disruption?
When you synthesize the entire timeline, it actually makes complete strategic sense.
Walk me through it.
From the wind tunnel blueprints of the 1970s to the infrastructure intrusions of 2026, the structural goal remains consistent: bypassing development timelines to establish systemic parity.
Okay, parity is the constant.
Right. Sometimes you achieve parity by painstakingly building a rival technology, like the Buran. Sometimes you achieve it by legally forcing a corporate entity to isolate their algorithms, like TikTok.
All right.
And sometimes, if you know you cannot outbuild your adversary, parity is achieved by ensuring you have the persistent, invisible capability to neutralize their infrastructure from within.
I see.
The core objective is identical. Only the architecture of the transfer has evolved.
Wow. Let's just take a breath and look at this grand synthesis.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is. I mean, we started by talking about a massive, highly coordinated Soviet effort to physically steal the paper blueprints of the space shuttle's thermal tiles in the 70s.
Yep.
Then we watched the battlefield shift to the courtroom with the 2026 legal maneuverings over international data servers and algorithm clean rooms.
The corporate boardroom phase.
And finally, we end up looking at invisible cyber threats, hiding quietly in the native administrative tools of modern municipal water supplies. Just waiting.
And this is exactly why understanding this structural evolution matters so much for you, the listener.
Why should people care?
Because we live in a world of constant information overload. A headline about an AI model and a headline about a water utility feel completely disconnected.
Right, they feel like totally different spheres.
But recognizing the changing architecture of how power and technology change hands is an essential critical thinking skill today.
It connects the dots.
It proves that the modern battlefield is no longer just a physical laboratory in the desert or a locked filing cabinet. The battlefield is the legal code of the social media apps running on your phone right now, and the open source software powering global infrastructure.
Exactly. Which leaves me with one final lingering thought for you to mull over as you go about your day.
Let's hear it.
If the current era of technology transfer relies so heavily on downloading legally open source AI weights and utilizing the native administrative tools already present on a computer system, is the traditional concept of espionage completely obsolete?
Oh, that's a good question.
Think about it. The next massive leap in global technological parity might not require any theft, any spies, or any intricate heists at all. It might just require a legitimate login and a download button.
It really makes you look at the digital world differently. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of transfer.
Keep questioning the connections around you, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.